Hi, everyone, and welcome to the CPE Webcast, the psychology of a modern tax workflow, reducing anxiety, decision fatigue, and compliance risk. Most firms focus on efficiency, automation, and AI, but the real challenges inside a tax workflow are often simpler and more human. Unclear expectations, too many handoffs, information scattered across tools, and clients or staff feeling unsure about what comes next. This 50-minute CPE session is brought to you by CPA Practice Advisor and SmartVault. You can find them at smartvault.com. SmartVault offers secure cloud-based client portals, client collaboration tools, and document management systems designed to help professional services businesses reduce costs, raise productivity, and employee happiness, stay in compliance, and deliver higher levels of service. I'm Isaac O'Bannon, Managing Editor of CPA Practice Advisor, and I'll be your moderator. I've worked with technology, CPAs, and tax pros for more than 25 years. Before we get started, let me explain how you'll earn CPE credit on this webcast. The event is 50 minutes and qualifies for 1 credit of CPE in the field of accounting or firm management or for general CPE. To claim CPE credit, you must stay with us for the entire webcast. During the event, we will display 4 polling questions. In each poll, you need to record an answer. This is our verification that you are still watching the webcast. At the end of the event, today's guest will continue for a short demo and a Q&A session that will last no longer than 15 minutes. We'll let you know when this begins. After the event, you'll be presented with a post-event survey evaluation form. Your CPE certificate will be sent to the email address you used to register. During the event, if you have questions, there's a field on your screen, and the speakers will try to get to as many questions as possible during the presentation, or may answer them by email following the event. Okay, today I'm joined by Chad Helminger and Jonathan Young. Chad is the Director of Product Marketing at SmartVault, and Jonathan is the VP of Marketing. So Chad and John, we're ready to begin.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Isaac. Like Isaac mentioned, my name is Jonathan Young. It's nice to meet everyone today, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to join today's session. Just before we quickly dive in, I think it's always important to just humanize these webinars and just make sure we cover a few things. So I've been with SmartVault for a little over 3 years, and I will say that I absolutely love working with the accounting profession. It's probably one of the most tight-knit communities I've ever seen or had the privilege of being a part of in my roughly 20-year career. I go to trade shows all over the country. We do lots of different, meet and greets with accounting firms. And I just want to say it's an absolute privilege to be able to work with a community like yours.
Yeah, and hi, everyone. My name is Chad Helminger. I've been at SmartVault here a little over 2.5 years, and I echo exactly what Jonathan just shared. Working with accountants is really exciting. I love hearing what's working, what isn't, and working together to partner with you to help solve challenges and workflow issues that you're facing to just make things more efficient and better for you.
To that point, guys, just to really level set on the agenda for today before we dive in too quickly, what we're going to cover is first the new costly reality for firms and how that friction shows up via stress, rework, and risk. We're also going to go through the 5 stages of where friction repeats. So we're going to go through a workflow, as Chad mentioned, from engage through collect, through prep and review, through deliver and archive. We're also going to cover what changes when workflows are intentional and how that can really create a calmer and more predictable experience. And then as Isaac mentioned earlier, we're going to go through a Q&A as well. Now with that, I just want to do a quick preface. I want to start with a slightly lighthearted disclaimer. Chad and I are not psychologists or medical professionals in any way. But we are human beings. We spend a lot of time working with tax professionals, listening to what drains them, listening to where they're looking to improve their workflows and reclaim quality of life in the profession, what stresses them, and just what quietly chips away at really those things that just kind of get at you, right? So a lot of what we're going to go through today is really meant to hone in on those things, but more importantly, how you can kind of troubleshoot and work through those issues to make sure that you're helping not just your firm, but your staff as well. So just to kick things off, if we jump into the next slide here, Friction often shows up as stress, rework, and risk. And, our team spends a lot of time doing proper market research with professionals like yourself to make sure that we can properly contextualize these issues so that you can understand that it's not just you, right? It's individuals across the profession feeling this. So first things first, we know that industry pressure is compounding. Technology is expanding every single day. We often joke internally that, AI solutions are popping up like dandelions. But with that, also you have increasing compliance demands, whether it's things like FTC safeguards, IRS 4557. You guys are fiduciaries of client data and of processes that safeguards that data. But really interestingly, when we ran through some industry benchmarks, we found that over 97% of firms are reporting tech inefficiency, right? Because it's one thing to grab all these different solutions, but if it's not thinking through things in a connected workflow, it is creating an increase in manual work. And that's where you're seeing that 50% of firms are reporting that increased manual work component. I also found this fascinating as well. Maybe that's too much of a generalization in the accounting world, but knowing how close to numbers you guys are, only 25% of accounting firms that we've polled are actually tracking workflow ROI. So you're investing in the solutions, but the ROI behind them is often an afterthought. But also more importantly, you're acknowledging that 71% of you believe that tech does drive client retention. So you are acknowledging that the easier you can make things for your clients, that it is increasing retention across your firm. So just a couple quick industry benchmarks just to ground us in today's conversation. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chad to dive into the core part of our presentation today.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. So this brings us to the first major source of strain we want to talk about today, and that's cognitive cost. When people think about burnout, they often think about long hours or heavy workloads. But what we consistently see is that it's not just volume that wears people down, it's fragmentation. Every time you have to decide where a document lives, or which version is correct, or whether someone already followed up, or what the next step actually is, that's a decision. Those decisions might feel small in isolation, but they stack up. And over the course of a day, a week, or let's say an entire tax season, they create decision fatigue. And one of the most common things we hear when we talk to firms sounds like this: our work wouldn't feel so overwhelming if everything just lived in one place. Or, I'm spending more time managing the process than doing the work. That's not about effort. That's about mental load. Now, I want to pause here and read something that really stuck out to me. And this came from a Reddit thread where accountants were talking candidly about busy season. And it's here on the right-hand side of your screen. It says, I'm not even tired from the work itself. I'm tired from constantly keeping track of where everything is, who has what, and whether I already asked for something. It feels like my brain never gets a break. That's the cognitive cost we're referring to. And that's what happens when your brain is constantly acting as the glue holding disconnected processes together. And that kind of fatigue, it doesn't just make work harder, it slowly drains your patience, your focus, and your energy, even outside of work too. Now, the second source of strain is confidence cost. And this one affects both firms and clients. Clients today expect simplicity, convenience, security, and professionalism. Not because they're unreasonable, but truly because that's how nearly every other service in their lives works. They expect working with their accountants to make things easier, not harder. And one of the most common things we hear firms say is, our clients don't read the organizer, or they never respond on time. Does that sound familiar? That's what's important here, is that this usually isn't about clients being difficult. It's often a sign that the process feels heavy, confusing, or misaligned with how people actually live and work today. When firms feel rushed, when you feel overwhelmed or unsure, clients feel it too. Clients don't see your internal workflow. They experience it through repeated questions or maybe delayed responses or unclear requests, or having to do more work than they expected. And over time, that uncertainty quietly erodes their confidence and yours. And once confidence starts to slip, everything feels harder for both sides. You know, I often like to mention this question that I'll pose to you guys rhetorically. In the image that you see here on the right, is that the client or is that the firm owner? You know, potentially it could be both, is what we're calling out here. And Jonathan, I think this is a good spot for you to share some things you've noticed as well.
Yeah, I just think, you know, what's interesting about the confidence costs and really the aspect of workflows in general is that oftentimes I've found, I mean, I've talked to, I've lost count, probably, you know, at least 1,000 to 2,000 accounting firms, I'd say, over the last 24 months, whether it's through one-to-one conversations, trade shows, you name it. But the point that I want to call out is that when it comes to confidence costs, I've often found that a lot of accounting firms, they're just truly looking for guidance and advice. They don't know the right answer to be able to stitch together a workflow, right? There's so much technology that's coming out into the market so quickly that you're seeing one great promise, right? It's kind of like squirrel, right? You're seeing a great promise, but then it's not actually tying back to, either integrations or other solutions that you already have. And I think that does come with a confidence hit, right? It comes with like, did I make the bad decision? Now I don't want to invest anymore. And then you revert back to old ways or old processes because it's the safe thing to do. It's the easier thing to do. It's what's tried and true. So I just think I'm acknowledging that, that confidence comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes, and being able to stitch together a workflow where you're able to think about it in the form of a workflow is the part that I'm hoping you're able to walk away with today, where it's not trying to solve some individual problem. It's trying to zoom back out and look at something in its entirety.
Yeah, great call outs. So now as we transition to that third source of strain, this is what we want to flag as compliance cost. And this one often lives just below the surface. Like, compliance stress isn't really loud. It's constant. It's that kind of awareness that sensitive data is moving through inboxes, shared drives, and systems that weren't necessarily designed to work together. It's knowing that tax firms are significantly more likely to be targeted during busy season, and that a single mistake, even an honest one, can have serious consequences. And what makes this particularly taxing psychologically is that risk doesn't live in one place. It's kind of spread across your entire workflow. And when processes aren't clear, people carry that risk mentally. There's always that kind of background noise and background questions saying, did we handle this correctly? Where does this data live? What happens if something goes wrong, right? And that low-level vigilance adds up. And over time, it contributes to chronic stress, even when nothing bad actually happens. Now with that, we're gonna pause. We're gonna ask one of our first polling questions. Isaac, I think on our back end is gonna have that show up here as a pop-up. But the question is, how many returns does your firm complete annually?
Okay, yeah, and I do want to remind our listeners that these questions are required for CPE credit. So how many returns does your firm complete annually across all entity types? And your options are 0, fewer than 50, 249 to 50 to 249, 250 to 999, or 1,000 plus. We'll give a few more minutes for people to answer on that.
And just while folks are answering this question, I think it's important context as to the why. Especially we do a lot of webinars, and we found that understanding the firm sizes that are on these types of webinars, it does frankly help dial in understanding our audience and who we're speaking to. So just really being able to understand the types of firms, the size of the firms that we're actually speaking with today. There's usually a lot of variety, but it also does tend to frankly skew towards a certain path. So that's the reason for the question today.
And are we ready to move on to the next question? I know that another, over my time with CPA Practice Advisor, I've seen that the average number of returns per preparer in a firm has dramatically increased, and because of the technologies such as SmartVault and other automation technologies. A one-person firm used to not be able to handle 250, and now it's almost necessary. So our second question is directly related to the first, of course, is what tax prep tools do you use? There are a few Intuit products, of course. There's Lacert and ProSeries and Intuit ProConnect. And then you also have Thompson's UltraTax, CCH Access, Drake, and there's a few other professional systems out there on the market. What do you guys see, and do you offer integrations across all of these platforms?
Yeah, it's a great question. We do offer integrations across all major tax prep softwares. So that's a big part of understanding what tax prep tools that you use, being able to have those documents route directly from tax prep software into a safe home. That is what we specialize in. Again, we're going to cover that more later today. But even just understanding our audience in terms of Intuit, UltraTax, CCH, Drake, or other users, again, it does just help frame even how we position, how we talk about with you the rest of the session today.
As the answers have come in, it looks like the Intuit variety of products, as well as other, are definitely leading the way. And you've got, around 8 to 10% on the other listed products. So.
Okay, thank you for everyone filling out the polls. So now with that, let's transition. So we've talked about this broader sources of strain. To recall, it was cognitive cost, confidence cost, and compliance cost. So now let's get a little bit more practical. No matter the size of the firm or the tools that you use, every tax engagement moves through the same 5 stages. You might use different terminology internally, but the work itself is consistent across across the profession. And we like to refer to these 5 stages as engage, collect, prep and review, deliver, and archive. And what's important to understand is that most firms treat these as separate processes, often supported by different tools or different logins and different habits altogether. And every time a stage is disconnected from the next, that's where friction starts to compound. So to level set on what we mean by each of those 5 stages, let's start with engage. This is the initial intake and onboarding. So think proposals, pricing, your engagement letters, setting general expectations, and really giving clients their first real sense of how your firm operates. Moving to collect, that's where firms request and receive documents and information, so organizers, emails, uploads, follow-ups. Prep and review is where returns are prepared, they're reviewed, they're corrected, and they're finalized. Deliver is how completed work is shared, signed, approved, and filed. And archive is where documents are stored, retained, and secured for compliance and future access. Now, each of these stages sounds straightforward on its own. The problem is how they feel in practice when they aren't connected. And before we go stage by stage here, we want one more poll here to hear from you. So Isaac, if you don't mind, our next polling question.
Okay, yes, and once again, remember to answer the polling questions. This is number 3. This is the Tylenol question, or maybe something stronger. What part of the tax workflow process causes the most stress and friction in your firm? Is it the engagement process, collecting documents, prep and review, client delivery, or archiving?
What was really interesting too, just as you guys are working through this poll, I want to say in Q4 of last year, Chad and I ended up polling over 5,000 people probably collectively over the course of that quarter. And there was a dominant answer, like dominant answer the entire time. So before I give it away, I'm curious to see once the poll closes out, if you're able to share what the results of this are. I'm curious if the same trend continues into 2026 here.
Give that a few more seconds.
Did you guys want to go ahead and share this, share the results on that?
Yeah. What's the poll say there? I can't see it.
Okay, they have been shared with the audience. I'm looking at by far over 52% are saying that collection, data collection is the number one headache, followed by prep and review, and just slightly higher than the others is engagement. Delivery and archiving is much lower on the totem pole, but it's by far the B, collection.
Yeah, that's it's ringing true from last year. I think last year across 5,000 people, it was about 78% reported that collect was the biggest pain point. So definitely a little bit more balanced today. But all things considered, it seems like that there's a theme there for sure.
Yeah, so thank you again for everyone for sharing. And let's dive into each of these steps. Let's have at it, right? So first step again was engage. And this is often treated as a quick administrative step, something to kind of get through so the real work can begin. Ever feel like that? But in reality, this stage sets the tone for the entire client lifecycle. So for many firms, engage looks like this. A prospect comes in, or you meet them over Zoom, pricing is discussed over email or a call, engagement letters are sent separately, sometimes days later. You include instructions, but they're in long emails or maybe an attached PDF. Clients are asked to remember where to send documents, how to sign, and what comes next. Now, from the firm side, onboarding often depends on who's handling it. There isn't one consistent experience. There are many slightly different ones. And that inconsistency creates immediate stress. Staff are improvising, clients are unsure, and expectations aren't fully aligned. We hear firms say things like this: every onboarding feels different, or we spend half our time clarifying scope after work has already started. And so when engage is unclear, uncertainty is introduced from day one, and that uncertainty doesn't go away. I really do like our image here where it's like a chain, and when it's broken at the beginning stage, it really sabotages every subsequent stage downstream. Now, when firms step back and intentionally design how this engaged stage works, the impact is outsized. This isn't about adding more complexity, it's about removing ambiguity. Firms that reduce stress at this stage tend to do the following. They standardize how onboarding happens. They clearly define scope, pricing, and responsibilities up front. They establish a single home base, if you will, for client interaction, and they communicate what clients can expect and when. And what we hear from firms that make these changes is that the rest of the workflow feels calmer. Not because the work disappears, there's no magic bullet here, but because expectations are aligned early. Engage isn't just administrative, it's foundational. And when it's shaky, every downstream stage feels harder. So now let's talk about the biggest pain point, or Tylenol moment, as Isaac mentioned, right? Collect. And this is one of the most emotionally charged stages in the workflow. For many firms today, collect looks something like a combination of this. You got paper or PDF organizers sent out at the beginning of tax season. You've got clients emailing sometimes they're incomplete, sometimes they're blurry. Documents arriving through multiple channels, so email, portals, text messages, even physical drop-offs, right? Staff then spend hours sorting, renaming, saving, and tracking what's been received and what's missing, often using spreadsheets or notes just to keep up. And let's not even talk about from a psychological standpoint that this stage is exhausting. You're constantly context switching, you're checking inboxes, you're trying to remember, did we already ask for this? was this version final? Did it come from the client or the spouse, right? Each of these questions is a small mental tax, and they add up quickly. We hear firms say things like, our clients never send everything, or we're always chasing documents. But what's really happening is it's overwhelming for both sides. I hope your blood pressure hasn't gone sky high right there, just recounting all of those things. But now when firms reduce stress in their collect stage, the shift isn't about speed. It's about clarity and momentum. And what works is when firms simplify how information is requested. They reduce the amount of guessing that clients have to do. They limit where documents can be sent, and they make progress visible. So when clients understand exactly what's needed and where it belongs, they're far more likely to engage. From the firm's perspective, fewer channels mean fewer decisions, less chasing, and far less mental clutter. One firm, in fact, told us that once they streamlined collection, staff stopped feeling like they were babysitting the process. And they started feeling like they were actually moving work forward again. Okay, not all doom and gloom. Let's go to the third stage, prep and review. This is where the cumulative toll of earlier stages really starts to show up. So when documents arrive scattered, inconsistently named, or incomplete, preparers are forced into search mode instead of preparation mode. They're opening multiple systems, they're comparing versions, they're double checking whether they have everything. We hear things like, I spend more time finding documents than working on returns. Or I'm constantly second guessing whether I'm looking at the right file. Ladies and gentlemen, this is classic decision fatigue. When your brain is overloaded with small, unnecessary decisions, accuracy suffers and confidence does too. Now, on the flip side, when prep and review is designed intentionally, the biggest relief can come from predictability. Firms that reduce stress here tend to standardize where documents live, use consistent naming and organization, clarify ownership, and review steps. You know, the emotional impact here is significant. Staff begin to trust what they're working with. They know where to look, and that confidence reduces both rework and anxiety. You know, one firm described it simply, my brain finally stopped spinning at the end of the day. That's what reducing decision fatigue feels like. So next, let's move to deliver, the moment clients remember most. You know, for most firms today, deliver still looks like this. Completed returns are emailed. Signature links are sent separately. Clients reply asking what they're supposed to do next. Staff follow up. Links get lost. Someone replies to the wrong email thread. From the firm's perspective, deliver often depends on individual staff habits. Everyone has their own way of sending things, tracking signatures or confirming completion. Psychologically speaking, this stage creates a lot of low-grade stress. You're waiting, you're checking inboxes, you're wondering if something was missed. We hear firms say, I never know who's returned what, or I spend too much time chasing signatures. This is stressful because deliver should feel like closure, but instead, it often feels unresolved. You know, I love this image here where 4 days later, you're having to text Kim and say, hello, do you want your refund? Or, you know, it does feel like that quite often. Now, when firms reduce stress in the deliver stage, the biggest shift is predictability again here. Firms feel calmer by tending to do the following. They use a consistent delivery process for every client. They clearly separate what's complete from what's pending. They reduce reliance on inboxes to track status, and they close engagements cleanly. The emotional impact here is noticeable. Clients feel confident and informed. Staff aren't guessing or chasing, and the engagement actually feels finished, which matters more than we often realize. When deliver is predictable, it stops draining energy at the very end of the workflow. So guys, we've almost made it. We're at archive, the final stage. And this is often treated as an afterthought, something to kind of deal with later, if you deal with it at all. In many firms, archiving looks like files scattered across shared drives, folders labeled inconsistently, and retention rules that live in someone's head instead of a process. And from a psychological standpoint, this is where compliance anxiety that we mentioned earlier quietly lives. People worry where documents are stored, who has access, whether retention rules are being followed, and what would happen during an audit or security event. We hear firms say, I hope we're doing this right, or we'll deal with that if it comes up. That uncertainty creates lingering stress, even when nothing goes wrong. But there is an alternative. When firms are intentional about archive, the biggest relief comes from confidence. Firms reduce stress by treating archiving as part of the workflow, not an afterthought. They apply consistent retention and access rules. They maintain clear audit trails, and they know exactly where sensitive data lives. The emotional payoff is peace of mind. People stop carrying compliance risk mentally. They trust that their process protects both the firm and the client, not just today, but years down the road. And this is really, at this point, the synthesis of everything we've talked about so far is what changes when your workflows are intentional. So we've spent a lot of time unpacking where stress shows up across the tax prep workflow and why it feels so draining. What this slide does is hopefully bring it all together into a few core takeaways, not tactical steps, but guiding ideas that consistently reduce friction and mental load across every stage. So let's walk through these one by one, right? First one, we're going to simplify your stack. Fewer tools, fewer decisions, right? It's not always about adding that next new shiny software to your tech stack to eliminate one small or solve one small problem, right? It's really simplifying and looking at it holistically across all of these connected stages. Second is source of truth. We've mentioned this a few times, but having one source of truth for documents, sometimes we even hear as we meet with firms, Jonathan, maybe you can attest to this, is documents being stored in multiple different places, both for internal documents for the firm in maybe one system, and then all of your client documents in another system. Rhetorical question, could those be stored in one place? Could you reduce some of your tech stack there? These are things to ponder because it does matter where all of your documents live. Next is build a flexible foundation. So swap tools without chaos. So if you are going to make a change, if you are going to bring on that new tool, do your due diligence up front. Ask about the process to swapping those tools out, the benefits, the onboarding process, how well a solution might support you and your team. These are things definitely to contemplate so that you're making sure you're choosing best in class, but also ones that fit your firm. Jonathan, I'm going to steal one of the lines you often share in these. Our head of product, he says, when you meet one accounting firm, you've seen a whopping one accounting firm, right? Each of you do things differently. You have built-in processes and workflows that the tools should adapt to continue, right? They shouldn't blow up your entire process and workflow. They should provide efficiency, and they should make your life more streamlined. Next is connect each stage. We mentioned this at the beginning. We often hear as we consult with firms that they look at these stages as individual problem statements with individual solutions. And a lot of times we need to look at that, zoom out a little bit and look at each stage across the entire workflow and see where tools and solutions can fit within there. And then next, you're going to layer AI safely, save time, and be secure about the tools that you use that leverage AI. We've all heard those stories, right, of where AI has taken sensitive data and shared it where it didn't belong. And so we need to be cognizant of that. And those are recommendations that we hear or that we read about all the time when we talk with firms. Now, to transition from here, the outcome of doing these 5 suggestions, not only going to reduce friction, but it's going to make your practice scalable, sustainable, and client ready for what's next. Now, let's wrap that up with what a supportive workflow can actually feel like should you take on some of these recommendations, right? So fewer decisions, less mental clutter. So when work follows a predictable path, staff spend less time figuring out how to work and more time doing the work itself. And this is what we hear consistently for firms, is that alone kicks off re-looking internally at what is going to make the biggest impact for you and your clients. So start there. Next is clear expectations for your clients. Clients need to know where to go, what's needed, and what comes next, reducing confusion, follow-ups, and frustration on both sides. I think accountants often we hear want to do right by the client. And so if a client needs this, they'll allow that client to share their documents in the way that they find most effective. And it really needs to be a mind shift, right? As the firm, you need to set clear expectations of this is where documents are submitted. And that way your firm always can go to that one source. It's clear, nothing gets lost. You're not chasing documents. You're sending notifications and reminders for your clients to, guess what? Go back to that one place to submit all of your documents. And it's clear and less confusion. This might come as counterintuitive as someone who works at a software company, but fewer tools, but make them more intentional, right? That's truly what we're saying. There are so many different solutions out there. It really does behoove you and your firm to think about the minimum required tool set that's going to accomplish what you need to accomplish for your client base and for your firm's needs. Jonathan and I will hear stats of firms that have 7, 8, sometimes 14 or more different tools on average. And this is definitely where I think we recommend really take a close look at each of those. Next is reliable data and standard processes. Consistency creates confidence. We've said that a lot in today's presentation. And what that does is it makes the work more complete, more accurate, without constant checking, worry, stress. And then plan security. Let's not be reactive here. So retention, access, and protections are built into the workflow, reducing ongoing compliance anxiety. Many firms that we talk to, they are piecing together someone that is responsible or in charge or has in their title, tax preparer / chief information security officer. Like that is a tough responsibility, right? Especially for smaller to mid-sized firms. And this is a real challenge. Take that stress off their plates. Let them use tools, find software that is reliable and that can help build security and compliance for your firm. Now, don't want to spend too much time more on this slide because hopefully this point has been made, but most of this should start to feel more intuitive now. When workflows are intentionally designed, the biggest change isn't speed, it's how work feels day to day. And this creates less mental clutter. People aren't holding as many things in their head. They're not constantly wondering where something lives or what comes next. Clients know what to expect. They know where to go. They know how to respond, what that process looks like from start to finish. And these fewer tools mean fewer logins, right? Fewer tabs, fewer things to worry about or keep track of. And what a cognitive relief that builds for your firm, for your practice, for your clients. It's not perfection, but it's a lot of clarity. Now, What's powerful after we've said all of this is what happens next. When internal friction is reduced, when relationships start to change, both inside the firm and with your clients feel more confident because the process feels professional, predictable, and they respond more consistently. They ask fewer follow-up questions. They're less frustrated because they're less confused. And at the same time, firm staff feel less pressure to consistently develop or react, okay? So they're not spending their energy managing uncertainty, they're spending it doing meaningful work. And this creates a healthier dynamic overall. So when workflows reduce friction, trust increases, and when trust increases, the entire client-firm relationship feels easier to manage. Jonathan, I gotta pause here though, and talk about this image, right? Because this is like a dream scenario, I feel like, for all accountants and tax preparers out there at this coffee shop. What did you notice here?
I mean, it's the best coffee shop known to man. I think we joke that it's Death and Taxes coffee shop over here. We've got people collecting refunds, reviewing their returns, just doing everything you seamlessly expect of them while they're drinking their coffee. But in all seriousness, with what we talked about throughout the presentation today, when you provide the right client experience, it can be just that easy for your clients to be able to do what you're asking of them. But yeah, we often like to joke about this image. It's accountant's favorite coffee shop right here.
For sure. So let's transition over to you, Jonathan, and talk a little bit about what that looks like. What could that look like for the firms that we talked about today?
Yeah, so thank you very much, Chad, just for walking the group through that today. And really, up to this point, we've focused on how work feels, really where the stress builds, why decision fatigue happens in the first place, and essentially what changes when a workflow is designed intentionally. The slide that we now have pulled up here is really how we connect all of that and how a firm can actually support the intentional nature of those workflows. So if I pivot into talking a little bit about SmartVault, SmartVault is purpose-built for the accounting profession. This is not just a generic file sharing tool or a generic storage bin on how you drop your files into something. It truly is connected across the entire tax prep workflow, from engage through collect, through prep and review, through deliver, and ultimately an archive. There's a big reason why firms do trust SmartVault as the foundation of their day-to-day work. I think in principle, it starts with the notion that we can help you save about 60 to 90 minutes per return. But if you do me a favor and flip to the next slide here, Chad, what I think is also even more profound is just some of the numbers, right? We actually have over 500 million documents stored within our platform, right? So when you talk about trying to find the right solution with a trusted provider, we've got over 3 million users, and we've been in this business working with accountants directly for over 15 years. Now, one thing I do want to call out is the importance of that 15 years, because when we say that we are SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, it's implied in our name SmartVault, but this is actually something, forget about me representing SmartVault as a vendor today. As anytime you're evaluating solutions, guys, I would strongly encourage you to make sure that you're finding a SOC 2 Type 2 compliant vendor. What that means in human speak is that if someone's not SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, they're effectively not putting in the best world-class protocols to safeguard customer data, right? And as Chad mentioned earlier, you guys do have a fiduciary responsibility through FTC safeguards, through IRS 4557 mandates to make sure that you are protecting client data. When you are SOC 2 Type 2, what that means is, as a provider on our end, our entire employee base here, we are held to a certain standard in terms of how we operate, how we build our software. We are under a continuous and arduous audit by actual objective auditors that evaluate our software. Versus if someone's just SOC 2 Type 1, that essentially translates to like a one-time audit, right? So you kind of geared up for a one-time audit, you quote unquote passed, and then it's like, okay, cool, we can let off the gas now. SOC 2 Type 2 is continuous. But as I mentioned, we are built for accountants. We have integrations. I think Isaac mentioned this earlier. We have integrations with all major tax prep applications. So whether you're using Intuit Lacert, Pro Series, or ProConnect, UltraTax CS, with Thomson Reuters, we've actually had a lot of folks looking at SmartVault with the announcement of them sunsetting File Cabinet CS. So this is a great solution and a great option for any Thomson Reuters customers that are on here today, CCH, Drake, and other platforms as well. And we're centralized and we're integrated, right? We are the only DMS that integrates with all that software. And I'm also really proud to share that we most recently launched in October of last year what we call Smart Request AI. Smart Request AI is a document collection and intake tool that essentially takes the 1040 from the previous year. It's going to automatically scrape that for you, and it's going to pre-populate your client engagement questionnaire that you can then send out to your clients. So you're kind of reducing the friction of manual data entry for both you and your client, right? Super important. Then once you actually get that client engagement questionnaire back, you're essentially left with completed work paper. So as your source documents come back to you, as your 1040 comes back to you, you're left with a completed work paper that you can upload into the tax prep software. And then what's even great about that too, you can shoot it right back into SmartVault after for storage because of the direct integrations that we have with all major tax prep applications. The last thing I want to call out as well, I think this is really important, is we do have a dedicated care team here. We actually ramp up our hours during tax season. I'm very proud to share that over the last 3 tax seasons, we've had 100% uptime. What that means is when you need our software the most, we are reliable. The software stays sturdy, especially during tax season with that 100% uptime. But the care team that supports it is the backbone of that. We have lots of different ways that you can learn. We have, things like office hours. We have one-to-one sessions that you can schedule. We've got a great Smart Hub where it houses a lot of different videos and resources to learn how to get the most out of our solution. Because again, it's a powerful tool. You can do a lot across the different tax workflow buckets that we've hit today. And we're very proud to share that, again, we're not just a one-stop storage bin. It really is workflow oriented to really try to make your life easier in that regard. And for anyone that is interested in seeing SmartVault, again, just to reiterate from earlier, Brooke Sargent, he's actually going to come on at the end of the presentation today to do a very, very brief, it's nothing long, guys, it's 15 minutes max, like actually max, where it's not going to be longer than that. So you can kind of get a sneak peek of how SmartVault works, either heading into this tax season or obviously something to look at as you go through the trials and tribulations of your upcoming tax season for maybe May or after. So with that, if we flip over to the next slide here, if you want to learn a little bit more about SmartVault, this is our latest resource. So if you scan that QR code, what that'll do is it'll bring you directly to this document you see here called the Connected Tax Workflow. It frankly goes into a lot of what Chad covered today, but even into more specifics around how the functionality that SmartVault offers directly caters to each of those different parts of the workflow. And some of that obviously Brooke can tackle in the demo today. And then last but not least, I just want to be aware of everyone's time today. We do have one final polling prompt that we'll toss back over to Isaac. Then we're going to open it up to a very brief Q&A. We did get some questions that have come in throughout the session today. And then we'll approach our demo and wrap up today.
Okay, and this is the final CB polling question. Would you like to learn more about SmartVault? Your options are yes, you'd like a personalized demo, or not at this time. And I have a question while people are answering that. IRS says tax filing will start being accepted next Monday, the 26th. So do firms still have time to get up and running, especially if they're suffering some of these disconnects and pain points that you're talking about, broken links in their onboarding, broken links, anywhere along the chain. You guys have the ability to show them and help them get implemented in time for this tax season, right?
That's a great question. I appreciate you asking. And I'm always an honest, straight shooter. So I'm going to give you guys a very honest answer. So if you're an Intuit firm, there's a strong answer that it's a yes, because we basically have built out a native tool called the Migration Wizard. So those migrations are very, very fast that can get you set up for tax season. So if you're using the CERT, if you're using Pro Series, if you're using ProConnect, it's where we are able to do the setup the fastest. Now, I'll also say in the same breath, not just Intuit, anyone can get set up. I mean, you can get set up and running very quickly with SmartVault. It just depends on if you're looking to migrate over your data, right? That's where I want to be very transparent on your question, Isaac, because if someone has a lot of data they're looking to port over, obviously you can stage that, right? If you want to use the tool just during tax season, thumbs up, we can work with you. But depending on how much data you're looking to migrate over for your entire firm, that's where you could potentially start working with us, air quotes today, but then start to migrate that data over after tax season. So I want to make sure I'm not being evasive in your question. It just has some caveats to what someone wants to accomplish within a realistic time. We have some firms that have like terabytes and terabytes of data that does take, a couple weeks for that to be able to migrate and port over. So it just depends. I just hope that's not too evasive. I just want to be able to give some context to the answer.
Well, it still sounds like you can certainly help firms start making progress. The majority of firms would probably be able to be up and running smoothly and really start to improve those pain points. And just, once you start making progress on improving what ails you, I think it'll do wonders for their stress levels. I'll let you guys get back to your other attendee questions.
It's funny. I mean, one of the questions I'm kind of addressing it, so I'll just drive it home. I mean, we did have some questions come in throughout the presentation today, and one of them was, do you recommend that a firm automates before, during, or after tax season? So it's, you teed me up well there, sir. And that's where it just, it really just depends on what your firm is looking for and being realistic with your timeline. So if you want to get set up today for this tax season, we can definitely get you set up. Where there's a little bit more of a longer tail is if you have years and years of data that you're looking to port over or migrate from another technical solution. And again, depending on what tax software you're using, there's just different processes that we as a software provider have to follow. Right. So for example, an Intuit user, it's extremely fast versus if you're like a Thomson Reuters user, it might take a little bit longer to port over that data. Where you're looking more to like a 2 to 4 week window because of just the processes that are required to cater to UltraTax CS. So that's why, again, I try to be direct and transparent, but I just want to provide some context too. Chad, there's another question that came in. I'll try to tackle a couple things just before we pivot to the demo. You covered a lot of this in your presentation today, so I feel like this is relevant for you. A question came in, where should a firm start if their current tech stack feels too disconnected to fix everything at once?
Yeah, it's a great question. We get that quite often, right? Because it can feel a little overwhelming when we present all the different stages, and you might start to poke holes with your firm on where do I start, right? So valid question. I think, the easiest answer is it's going to depend. I think the biggest challenge is when firms get overwhelmed and then they don't take an action. Something as simple, I'll use an example though, like if collect from our poll was one of the biggest headaches, start there. Take that and break it down into chunks. Do you, ask yourself some rhetorical questions. Do you have a reliable client portal where clients can upload their documents? If not, start with that. If, archiving is an easy, quick win. If that's something you can update, great. The biggest thing that I think a lot of firms also, the flip side of that is, we're super frustrated. We want to rip and replace out our tax prep software. In my recommendation, that may not be. There's always outliers to this answer, but that may not be the best place to start, right? Is thinking about your tech stack in that way. But definitely think about, all of the different scenarios we mentioned. Every firm's different. I'll even throw one more out there and then I'll stop answering the question, Jonathan, or I'll be long-winded, but maybe it's starting with pricing. So in that engage stage as well, right? Are you in fixed pricing? Are you talking about, you want to make the shift to value pricing? When do you collect payments? Is it initially right after the engagement letters and proposals go out? Is it after you deliver, right? Those, while they might seem like small answers or small fixes, those can really make a huge impact for your firm. But the bottom line is we recommend don't hesitate, right? Take a step forward in improving your 5 stages by making a change so that you don't just keep kicking the can down the road and creating more stress and friction.
Yeah, thank you, Chad. And a couple more questions. Warren, I want to address your question around getting a copy of our SOC 2 Type 2 report. I see I could either email it to you directly, or even if you do go on the SmartVault website, in the footer of our website, in the very bottom, we actually house a resource section that can point you to all of our security documents. But I'm also happy to send it to you directly. So I just wanted to acknowledge that call out, Warren. There's another question that came in around how does Smart Request AI protect client data? I'm hearing a lot of concerns about AI tools. So this one I want to actually hit head on because this is also a good question to just provide a quick little bit of knowledge and education for everyone on the call today. Anytime you're looking at an AI tool, right, I would encourage you to try to find something what's known as closed sourced, right? When it's closed sourced and it's a private model, that essentially means that a business is not using your data to train its AI and or share the data that comes in through the AI tool. With Smart Request AI in particular, to address the question directly, we are a closed loop private model. So we are not training anything with your data. We're not sharing your data in any way, shape, or form. It's a proprietary build that we did for Smart Request AI. So that way you don't have to worry about some of those interesting stories and anecdotes that are floating around there with a lot of these AI tools that are coming out. There was actually another question about Smart Request AI and thank you for this. It's an existing SmartVault customer. Around if I'm already using SmartVault, how do I add Smart Request AI? You could just very simply either go to our website to schedule a demo or just give us a call directly. You could even self-serve, frankly, you can add it onto your account. But I would recommend calling or scheduling time with us so that we can walk you through how the tagging process works, how Smart Request AI functions, and just make sure that you're able to use it as best as possible, whether it's for this tax season or upcoming tax season. There's another one that came in around, can Smart Request AI be customized for different client types or organizers? So what we found on this, we actually had what we call a customer advisory council. So we don't build our software solutions in a silo. We actually often partner up directly with accounting firms every step of the way to make sure that as we're building something, it is directly catering to how they like to work and how they like to operate. So right now, Smart Request AI basically works best with personal 1040s, right? So if you're a business, partnerships, things like that, we've found that the custom nature of that is actually not necessarily something that is recommended to be automated, right? As a firm owner or the tax preparer for that types of engagement, we found that a automated solution is actually not the best. So where Smart Request AI works the best in particular is, again, personalized tax returns for 1040s. And that's where you can really scale fast. We've actually found that in addition to the roughly 60 minutes that you can save with SmartVault on tax returns, we're actually finding you can save potentially up to another 60 minutes just through the use of Smart Request AI and our document collection tool there. I know there was a couple other questions that have come in, and apologies, I want to be aware of the time. So if we didn't get to your questions, we will do our best to reach back out to you after the presentation today. But with that, I am going to turn it back over to the CPA Practice Advisor team, just so that we can get Brooks set up for his quick demo. Just before we do that, Chad, if you don't mind just flipping real quick to the next slide here. This is just a really quick wrap up. Again, if you did want to learn more today, if you don't have time to stick around for Brooks' demo, just go to smartvault.com. You can check out, you can schedule time at your convenience. We've got lots of great thought leadership content on there that talks about the latest and greatest happenings across the industry. Lots of good case studies and testimonials. Chad and I often joke that at the end of the day, we're just a couple talking heads. Don't take it from us, take it from your own folks in your profession. We've got lots of case studies and testimonials there. And then with that, again, I'll toss it back over to the CPA Practice Advisor team so we can get Brooks set up for his demo. And personally, if I don't talk to you guys again today, just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time and joining us for the presentation.
Likewise, thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys. Once again, it was an informative discussion, and I hope people are able to stop taking the Tylenol and address the root cause of their issues. So for our attendees, shortly after today's event, you'll receive a CPE certificate in the email inbox that you used to register. If you have any questions about the CPE, you can contact us at editors@CPA Practice Advisor. But stay tuned right now because we're about to give you a hands-on demo of what SmartVault would look like. So I'm going to turn it over to Brooks Sargent with SmartVault.
Thank you, Isaac. My name is Brooks Sargent with SmartVault. I'm sharing my screen right now, and what we'll do is we'll walk through a quick demo of SmartVault. What we're looking at here is the client portal. This could be your client portal with your branding and logo. It could be a button on your website. It could be a link in your email that the client can access. Either way, we make it very simple for a client to log in with their email. They'll set their password initially. If and when they forget their password, they will reset their own password. They will not reach out to your team for a password reset. When I click sign in, I would normally get a two-factor authentication code. It'll default to email. And when the client logs in, they'll see your branding and logo, and there's two buttons. Once again, we make it very simple. The client can upload a document, view the folders you've given them access to, and then down here's a document checklist. Of course, you can send a document checklist and ask supporting questions. We're going to click on that in a moment. If you hadn't sent a checklist, the client would be able to click upload a document. And the client will be able to upload into the correct folders, meaning that each year SmartVault will automatically present the most recent tax year folder so the client can upload into the correct folder. Now they can upload from their phone or from their computer. If it's a mobile device, there'll be an additional button that says scan to PDF. And when the client clicks on that from a mobile device, it'll open the camera. It'll allow for a scan, and what you're going to receive is a high resolution cropped PDF directly into your source documents folder instead of a JPEG image. Sometimes clients like sending JPEG images. Those can be difficult. So you don't have to do that within SmartVault. You can scan to PDF from any device. The client logs in a simple portal. You can share documents for all of your services. And then the other button over here is just going to give the client access to whatever folders you want to give them access to. So if Nick was a partner in a business and a 1040, he'd be able to access all of the records for the business and other services. Now, we talked a lot about tax software integrations. What we'll see here is we're doing Nick's taxes for the last couple of years. When I click on some folders, we're going to be talking about the integrations in just a moment. But our tax software is going to be setting up our tax year folders and placing the documents into the correct folders. So if I was to print or bulk print client organizers, they would all go into all of the client's folders automatically. If I was to print a client copy, the integration would send that to the correct client, the correct tax year, and the correct folder. So once again, the goal is just to be able to share documents with clients. We see the upload folder is presented here. A lot of times a client could log in a portal and upload all over the place and get everybody confused. Within SmartVault, you'll see the documents are routed into the correct folders from the portal to you and from your tax software directly to the client. So once again, the client can upload documents. They can view the folders you've given them access to. Now down here is a document checklist. We have two options. One is totally included within SmartVault. You can create a manual checklist for no additional cost. The other is an intake tool called Smart Request AI. What that will allow you to do is it'll automatically scan last year's 1040, create the checklist and the supporting questions, and deliver it to the portal. What we're looking at here is going to be the totally no cost, totally included checklist. I can manually send a document checklist to a client. I can type in the documents I need. We know they can upload, write a message, upload, write a message. The documents will go into the correct clients folders, and then you can log in and see the answers to any questions. So once again, it's a simple client portal. It's connected to your tax software. The goal is to easily be able to share documents and collect documents from clients. Option 1, checklist totally included. Option 2 is an intake tool, and we're going to look at that in just a moment here, once again called Smart Request AI. So here's the client view. Once again, just designed to be very simple. A lot of times a firm would use SmartVault when they want to help their clients get away from emailing sensitive documents. The client knows email is not safe and secure, it's just easy. So the portal is designed to be easy as well for the clients. So instead of the client, we can log in as yourself on the browser from any device. I'm going to quickly log in on the desktop application. If you're a PC user, you can use our desktop application. I just clicked on it. This allows you a very nice file manager with all of your clients, all of their documents in the center here. You have some tax year folders year over year. SmartVault has a template. Your tax software is actually going to set up your tax year folder each year. So whether it's Lacert, UltraTax, CCH Access, your tax software sets up your tax year folders each year, and then it's going to print those documents and route them automatically into the client's folder. So SmartVault has direct integrations with many tax softwares that allow you to print from your tax software, and then the document will land into the correct client, the correct tax year, and the correct folder based on the type of document. Once again, print or bulk print client organizers will send them all to the client portal. So there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained by using the integration with the tax software. You'll notice that some of these folders have a little blue dot, the top 3, and some do not. The little blue dot indicates the client can log into the portal and access the documents. So once again, the client is uploading into the correct folders for long-term storage. They're only going to have access to the top folders in your storage. they're never going to see your preparer copy or your internal work papers. The SmartVault permissions will ensure that. So once again, SmartVault is secure storage and file sharing. You can connect a desktop scanner. So when somebody does hand you paper, you can scan from a desktop scanner directly into the client's folders. There is an integration with DocuSign. It is an add-on. If you choose to use our DocuSign, we have some plans with and some plans without. Step 1 could be print in 8879 from the tax software. Step 2 could be press get signature. That's going to pop open our integration with DocuSign. You can see now we're on DocuSign's website. Here's Nick's folder in SmartVault. Once again, designed to be very easy to send out documents for signature. You can drag and drop. DocuSign will try to learn your documents and place the signature items automatically. So once again, we have a DocuSign professional license. It just makes it very easy to send documents to all parties. It will be automatically routed back into the same folder it was sent from. So your e-file is going to come back into the same folder it was sent from. The clients are going to upload into the correct folders, and then your tax software prints directly into the correct folders for storage and file sharing. The way that happens, as I look at Lacert, for example, once again, we have integrations with many tax softwares, and it's a print integration. So instead of printing paper, I can always send those documents PDF copy directly into the correct client's folder. The integration will tell me the year of the tax software and the correct document. Once again, the preparer copy would go into internal storage. The client copy would go directly to the client portal. Very similarly in UltraTax, when I come in here and I print PDF to file, if I print all 3 copies, they go into all 3 folders as their different documents. So once again, SmartVault is just going to route the documents into the correct folder depending on the type of document. Once again, the client copy goes to the portal, organizer, print, or bulk print. I'm watching the clock here. I'm intentionally going through SmartVault as an overview. We know we can log in a browser. We know we can log in the desktop application. SmartVault is unlimited cloud storage in a very secure environment. We've been in business for 17 years. It's designed to be very simple and very secure. If you're managing your other services, many accounting firms are going to collect documents for all of their service. We've been looking at taxes here. If I've been doing bookkeeping, payroll, some other services for our client here, I can just bring in the folders relevant to that service. Once again, they're secure folders. They're in the cloud, very easy to access. I'm going to click on my Windows File Explorer down here just to show that SmartVault also maps directly to the folders on your computer through a map drive. So however you'd like to access your secure storage and file sharing, you can access SmartVault. And once again, it's going to be connected to most tax software. I'm going to log in on the browser. So once again, from any device, if you're a Mac user, maybe you're using a cloud-based tax software like a ProConnect, you can log in from any device. I'm going to log in as myself as a tax preparer. We're going to see that you have the ability to search for clients. You can see I have 292 clients. The goal is just to easily search for a client record. We can see that we have our client's contact information, and then we have secure folders here. Some of them have the blue dot, some do not. Once again, you have secure storage and file sharing with clients. As I click home, we have some additional add-ons. So if you wanted an engagement letter tool, we have an integrated engagement letter tool. We have a PDF form filler down here. So once again, there are some other topics that you could piece together and build your SmartVault according to what you need. I'm going to click on document. Over here, we have document checklists, the totally included, no cost. I can manually create a checklist. I can come in, send it to a client, review the questions. We know the documents are going to go directly into their folders. What we're going to look at real quick here is Smart Request AI. When I come to doc requests, we know the totally included checklists are right here. Smart Request AI, once again, will allow you to scan last year's 1040 and automatically create the checklist. You can send it to clients individually or in bulk, search for a client. What it's going to do is create an intake tool, and it's going to deliver it directly to the client portal. So option 1, manual checklist. Option 2 is an intake tool. You may decide to use this for your more challenging document request lists, like a Schedule C or some other more involved request lists. So let's go in and take a look at this here. You can see that I've started from my last demo midway. I'm just going to come back to the beginning. So once again, this is going to be known as an intake tool. It is an add-on, so you have the opportunity to purchase this as needed. What it's going to do is scan last year's 1040, create the checklist, and the supporting questions. The client can log in. All of the information is going to be filled out already because we did nix taxes last year. Even if we didn't, there's a way to get that tax return. So you can have a document checklist. We can ask supporting questions. It's a template, meaning that it's very easy for you to send this out in bulk or individually. If the client has additional income, when they select that income, it will present that document upload. Once again, the goal is just to make it very easy. Documents from clients, ask the correct questions, and automate that process through the Smart Request AI. Now, we've covered a lot here today. We're closing up on the meeting here. I want to thank everybody for joining. Once again, SmartVault is secure storage and client portal to make it very easy to collect source documents. And there are some additional functionalities that are important to many firms. So once again, thank you for joining here. For additional information, hop on our website, smartvault.com. And if you'd like to learn more, we're going to be sending out an email following this meeting here with some great resources as a thank you for joining us today.
And this is Isaac O'Bannon, Managing Editor of CPA Practice Advisor. Once again, I want to thank everybody for attending, and please visit cpapracticeadvisor.com. If you use the Resources tab, you can see our archived and our upcoming webcasts. This event is now over, and the audio will end in 3 seconds. 2, 1.